It's that time where we look at some high-end prospects who might be ready to make their major league debuts very soon. Got some new names for you this week. One that is very familiar, and yes, another Oriole prospect. Break out the Whitesnake cassette. Here we go again. Heston Kjerstad, the number 4 prospect, and the guy who's been absolutely obliterating AAA pitching in Norfolk, is back with the O's. Well, we've seen this before because he was up several weeks ago for just enough time for us to be bitterly disappointed that he wasn't playing and then be sent back down to dominate AAA again. I know we don't want to fall for this trap twice. Maybe things will be different this time. I mean, you got to figure they called him up for some reason. Well, we're actually off to a promising start because in his very first day back with Baltimore, he actually started. He was hitting 5th. And his very first at-bat, he ripped a double and then followed up with another hit later. Now, this doesn't mean he'll be the everyday left fielder because Colton Cowser is still there. Colton Cowser's been a little up and down, but he has been on the roster all season long. I don't think he's just going away because they did not send him down. More than likely, we're going to see some sort of an alternating plan here. I'm not sure exactly if they have a plan yet, but at least it's promising that they did put Kjerstad out there. There's really no reason to send him back down again if they were going to call him up. And again, nothing for him to prove at the minor league level. He was hitting 300 with 16 home runs, 58 RBIs over 258 plate appearances at AAA. Let's just keep him on the club and let him stay. Now, you won't see that many people rushing out to pick up Kjerstad because of what happened the first time. And it's true, I cannot promise you that he will see regular playing time. I have no idea. But look, the upside here obviously is that of one of the best rookie hitters potentially in the majors if he gets consistent playing time, and it looks like he's ready. So if you got room, I have to say this is your top priority stash. Now let's talk about a hitter who really it should just be a matter of time because he's actually been better than Heston Kjerstad at AAA. That's Jhonkensy Noel, the Cleveland Guardians system. Noel is a Dominican slugger who's just about to turn 23 years old here in a couple of weeks. He's got 80 grade raw power. So you can imagine this is a guy who might have a little bit of fantasy intrigue here. Now the hope here is that he can basically do what Cal Manzardo did not do yet. Manzardo was just okay, didn't really show off a lot of power. I'm not giving up on Manzardo. I doubt the Guardians are either. But maybe Noel, with the way he's been hitting the ball, does get a crack next. I mentioned those stats being better than Kjerstad. Yeah, he's hitting 295 with 18 home runs, 59 RBIs at AAA. Now, he's really not that high up in terms of ranking on the Guardians prospect list. I mean, they have a lot of players who you might see and hear about them before Noel, but Noel's clearly been the most productive. He was part of the Futures game back in 2022. Look, this guy is just tearing up pitching. He's going to get a chance because the Guardians could still use a consistent bat, somebody who, whether at first base or DH, whatever, they could use some more power. There's a really good chance that you can get Jhonkensy Noel because, again, not a big name here, so probably easy to stash now, but you're going to want to get ahead of the game because, again, once word gets out that he gets the call, and if he does start immediately hitting in Cleveland, then it might be too late. Now, believe it or not, a team that really could use some help on offense, not just depth. I mean, the bench in Atlanta is pretty thin, but also just not starting lineup these days. The Atlanta Braves, I mean, yeah, we know that they've been disappointing compared to last year. Started to come around, but still, you look at some of the names, just in their starting lineup, we're looking at Ramon Laureano, Forrest Wall. On the bench, a guy like Zach Short, Brian Anderson, cast-off from the Brewers/Marlins. I mean, they could use a little bit of help here as well. One of their top offensive prospects who might be ready to take a leap is Nacho Alvarez Jr. For those who don't know, Nacho, of course, being short for Ignacio, but you can call him Nacho. Look, Nacho is not going to be a guy who has nearly the same profile as a guy like Noel or Kjerstad over here talked about. This is not a power bat. This is hit tool over power and speed. Probably not really going to steal a ton of bases here, so you're looking for batting average first and foremost. I can't promise you a future fantasy stud, but the appeal here is he's on the Braves. I mean, if he gets a shot to be maybe a regular here, could score a ton of runs. Now, most likely, if he debuts, when he debuts, probably be at the bottom of that lineup, but I would take somebody at the bottom of the Braves lineup as opposed to somebody who's leading off for, let's say, the White Sox or the A's any day. Alvarez just got promoted to AAA a couple of weeks ago, and since that time, all he's done is hit 375 at that level. I'd say there's not really room for him in terms of the starting 9 there, but again, look at those names there. He's not an outfielder, he's a shortstop by trade. Maybe for a team that is going to look to make a run, they might find more appeal in a guy like Nacho as opposed to a Zach Short who, no offense, sure, he's got some versatility in the field, but still, just not a lot of upside there. So keep Nacho Alvarez in mind. I think he's going to be a little more valuable in a points league than your roto league because, like I said, the counting stats aren't overwhelming, but if he can hit for average, score some runs, he's got some use. Now, as far as pitchers go, let's talk about David Festa in Minnesota. This is another player who there really isn't a spot open for, but he might force his way up to the club at some point. And again, as goes with all these guys, injuries happen, next man up. You want to be ahead of the game and identify these players before it happens. Now, Minnesota's rotation is pretty deep. They've been pretty solid so far, but David Festa is probably their top pitching prospect that is going to be major league ready. In 14 starts with a AAA affiliate, St. Paul Saints, well, Festa has posted a 3.77 ERA, 1.29 whip, and more impressively, the strikeouts are pretty high, 87 Ks in just under 60 innings. Festa's got a solid fastball and velocity that seems to be on the rise and a really good slider. It's a guy who stands 6'6", yet just 185. Maybe he'll fill into his frame a little bit at some point, but still, this guy's got a strong arm, good command so far, definitely strikeout upside. So again, right now, there doesn't seem to be a spot waiting for him on the Twins roster, but things always can change in a hurry. It won't be long before I talk about another Twins pitcher, Zebby Matthews, who is also on the radar, but I think he's a little farther off. I don't see him debuting before Festa. Then for this prospect, I guess at this point I have to say former prospect. Going to go deep and, maybe just take a long shot on a guy who's just traded and finally might get a chance to live up to his potential. It's Jordan Groshans. Now, Groshans is technically still a rookie, only 65 plate appearances in the majors. That happened a couple years ago with the Marlins. This is a guy who's a former first rounder, a 12th overall pick. That was by the Toronto Blue Jays. He got flipped to the Marlins for a couple of relief pitchers and then was waived. Then got DFA'd by the Yankees, and now he finds himself in Oakland because they decided they want the veteran J.D. Davis, who was also a veteran who's got DFA'd. So, look, basically it's a guy who was a former high-end prospect that has been had for peanuts. But if there's a place that you can make it in the majors, it's Oakland. Look, Groshans is not somebody who has really been productive. There's a reason why he's been let go, despite the fact that he was highly sought after on the draft, but this year, not really been that productive across AA, AAA levels, hitting 232, just one home run, only 5 doubles, a slugging percentage of .330. I mean, it just hasn't really come together for him. So now you're probably asking, why would it come together now? It might not, but I'm going to say that if there's a chance for a former high-end prospect here to make it happen, think about, I know this is a little more recent, but J.J. Bleday, who's in Oakland. All of a sudden, he's figured it out, realized why he was drafted high. Marlins let him go, and of course, as usual, make nothing of it. Well, maybe this is the same case here. If he gets playing time, this is just a reclamation project waiting to happen. Groshans is far removed from being on any prospect list anymore, but look, I'm not saying I'm actively adding or stashing him, but I will keep an eye on him for right now. Definitely want to keep an eye on those young players who could be on the rise. Also, look at these players who are now suddenly falling. These are some big name players who are struggling. Should you panic here or not?